So we'll say start recording. And here we go. Okay, so before starting the topic, let's discuss what we have done in the last session. So what we did is, basically we wanted to achieve something called as dependency injection, and we wanted to achieve IOC, which is inversion of control. The way you can do that is, what we're expecting is, if you want an object, you don't have to create that object by yourself. There should be a container, which is your Spring container, and in that container you should be having this feature where your Spring will say, okay, we got a Spring container here, and what Spring will do for you is, you just have to mention what you want. If you want an object of interface also, maybe if you want to instantiate an interface, what you can do is you can ask, hey Spring, I'm looking for the implementation, or I'm looking for the or I'm looking for an instance of thinkable interface. But then thinkable is an interface, right? How can I create object of that? So your Spring is smart enough to search for the implementation of thinkable in its own container. So you have to make sure that whatever the implementation of this thinkable is, it belongs to your container. And how can you make a simple class as a part of the container? You just have to use an annotation called as @component. The moment you do that, the moment you say @component, in fact, we have done that for human and we have done that for alien. So we have two classes here. One is alien, one is human, and both are component. In case of confusion, we can use @primary, right? And in case of so in case of, if you want to go for, see, by default, when we use a concept of auto-wired, it goes with by type, right? And the way you can do it with by name is by using a concept of qualifier. Now just think about it. Okay, we do have some more annotations in Spring that we'll discuss later. In Spring Code, we do have some more things, but that we'll discuss later. What my main question today is, again, the first, initial time we'll discuss about, I want to discuss about something. So I want your help here. So Chetu, Krishna, and Vivek, I need your feedback as well as soon as possible. Now, when I say feedback, I'm talking about my questions. So if I will ask you some questions now, and try to answer those questions as quick as possible. Again, these are not technical questions. These are general questions in general world. Think about the education system, think about colleges, think about companies. So this is related to that thing. So all set, Chetu, Krishna, and Vivek. I was expecting some big crowd today, but then we have only 3 people, but then that's fine. So, okay, maybe everyone is enjoying Friday today. Finally, it's Friday, weekend is on the way. Chetu, excited, right? Okay, so so what I want to discuss here is, think about this. If you talk about Java, if you talk about any other framework in Java, let's say we talk about servlets. So what you think? Let's start with you, Chaitanya. What do you think to teach someone servlet and JSP? Do we need to know? Do they need to know core Java? Can I teach servlets without the knowledge of core Java? What do you think? No, right? Because when you learn servlets, there are lots of things which you should be aware before doing servlet, because servlet itself has so many topics, and suddenly if you say, hey, this is how we create variables in servlet, now that will not be a good way, right? It will create lots of confusion. So what we do is we follow a particular schedule. Example, we follow a particular pattern. If you want to get into Java world, the first thing you learn is core Java, right? That's the first thing you learn. And then you learn servlet and JSP, right? And then you learn about Hibernate. Maybe, in fact, JDBC before as well. So in servlet and JSP, you will learn about JDBC as well. And then you will learn about Hibernate. Then you will learn about Spring. And then you can call yourself as a Java developer, because now you know the language, and now you know the frameworks as well. Again, knowing the frameworks is not compulsory. When you join a company, they will teach you, or maybe they will ask you to learn at that point. And people do learn at the time of when they are working on the project. At that time itself, some people do learn, right? But again, if you're learning beforehand, that's a different thing, right? You already know stuff. Okay, so my point is it a right way to teach people? Okay, no, not that way. Okay, let's go this way. Now my question is it when you want to learn PHP, is it compulsory to know something before learning PHP? Or can I directly learn it? Example, if I don't know any programming language, I have never written any code before, can I learn PHP? Okay, I don't know if you have learned before. Anyone learned PHP here or worked on PHP before? Vivek, Krishna, Chaitanya, Chetu. Oh, okay, okay, not an issue. What if I say PHP is one of the easiest web programming language? I mean, if you don't know programming, I'm not saying it will be damn easy for you if you don't know programming. But then, even if you don't know programming, let's say if you are a newbie, you are just getting into a software industry, or maybe you just completed your 12 standard, you can still learn PHP because it is damn easy. The other hand, I mean, the same people, let's say if you are new to IT, and then the moment you say, hey, I want to be a web developer. In fact, nowadays it has become a trend, right? Everyone want to be a web developer. I mean, if you talk to students, I mean, school students as well, when they say, okay, let's learn a new language. I mean, we want to make websites, and to make, of course, to make a dynamic website, we need to know some programming language. So what they do, they search for the easiest language so that it will not take much effort, because you're doing it for your fun, right? You're not doing it for to achieve something in your life. You're just doing it for fun. Maybe some people are what you say, they have a positive attitude for living, so they learn so that they can improve their lifestyle, or they can improve themselves. So now tell me, Krishna, if you don't know any programming language and if you want to build a website, will you choose Java, where we have to learn core Java first, then you have to learn about server JSP, you have to learn about JDBC, or will you learn PHP to make a website? Of course, right? When you know that if something is easy than the other, again, you are not focusing on the thing. Example, will it be slow? I don't care. Will it be secure? I don't care. Will it be maintainable? I don't care. What I care now is I want to make a website. It doesn't matter. Is it in PHP? Is it secure? Is it stable? I don't care. What I care is about I want a website, and that's why they go with PHP. Again, I'm not saying anything bad about PHP. It's just that PHP is easy. PHP is, I mean, when it comes to big applications, it's not preferable. Now, the main point here is why I'm taking all this time, because what if I can convince people, hey, don't go for PHP, go for Java. It will be helpful for your lifetime as well. You can do that in your in your you can build websites, you can build applications, you can join a company and where they will use Java. But the problem is I can't. The reason I can't is because if you want to learn how to make a website, a good website, we need two things. First, you need to have the language fundamentals. You should know core Java. You should know server JSP, because that gives you the basic understanding of how request goes, how response, how you get response back, and all those things. Now, personally, I don't like servlets. The reason, it is damn complicated. I mean, it's an awesome technology, okay? When it comes to web world, one of the best technology in the world is servlets. But the moment if you ask to teach it to someone, that's where problem starts, right? It is not that easy to teach. First of all, those weird names, we call them as servlets. That's the one problem. Then we have to create a request object, response object. It's a very big headache. It's a headache, right? So if you want to be a good developer, okay, first of all, you're there with me, right, everyone? You're getting what I'm trying to say here. Okay, so the problem is, if you think Java Java should be everywhere. It should be in companies, which is there. It should be with students as well. If you are a college student, why you don't start with Java? The reason, it is difficult. Okay, that's the only reason why people don't choose Java in college life, right? If they want to learn something, they go for PHP. They will learn PHP. They will learn Python. They will learn ASP, because all those things are damn easy. The moment you come to Java, we have these weird concepts. I mean, those are awesome, but then it's difficult to learn, at least for freshers. So the same problem, so these Spring people, they were facing the same issues. Now what they think, okay, the same thing I think, what we think is, Instead of going for this big path, learning Core Java first, learning Server JSP, and then learning Spring Framework, what if you can just teach programming? You can just teach Java with Spring Framework. Now, what do you think, Vivek? Is it possible? To a fresher, we can teach Core Java, but I want to teach Spring Framework. I want to teach Java with the help of Spring Framework. What do you think? Is it a easy task or difficult task? A bit difficult, right? Again, it depends upon how you take it, but then still it is difficult, right? The problem here is, now look at these annotations, and that sounds good, okay? I mean, when I say create a component, that's fine. Okay, we can say create, I mean, the AutoVar, you can provide linking. The problem starts when you ask them to configure this. I mean, this is the main problem, creating a Spring XML file. Okay, see, this is a small project. It is not that, it is not hurting a much. But the moment you go for a web project, the moment you go for some database project, this will be very difficult to work with. Trust me, XML, maintaining XML and doing all the configuration is a big headache. That's the first issue. Second issue is, even if I can teach them Spring, the problem is you have to download the dependencies. I mean, what dependency I'm talking about? I'm talking about this POM dependencies. First of all, I have to teach them Maven, right? So without Maven, they cannot understand what I'm talking about. So there's a big problem like this. And even if you want to start a project, I mean, think about this. Let's say if you get a new project. Okay, let's not talk about freshers now. That's the issue we have with the freshers. We have to do lots of configuration. What is my dream? I want to teach people. I want to teach people directly Java with the help of Spring technology. I mean, the first day itself, I will not teach them Java. I will teach them Spring Framework itself. And while we are working on Spring, I will teach them concepts. Okay, this is how you do. This is how you create variables. This is how you use method overloading. This is how you use method overriding. And trust me, that will give them more product-based knowledge than going for theory concepts. I don't know how it will be going, but then I have that in my mind. Okay, but still, the problem is, we have to do lots of configuration. We have to use this POM dependencies. Now, this is a bit difficult to teach, and XML, this is a bit difficult to teach. Now, same goes with your project. In project as well, when you start a new project, there is lots of things. I mean, you have to spend lots of time doing the initial configuration. I mean, when I say configuration, you have to create XML file, you have to create POM file, right? What if I say you don't have to do all these things? You have to focus on the code part, which means instead of focusing on configuration, you should focus on convention. Now, what it means? Instead of focusing on configuration, that means instead of creating Spring file, instead of creating XML files, what if your focus should be on convention, what you want to do? And that's where Spring came up with a new concept. And that concept is called as, okay, let's keep it that way. Okay, Chetu says annotations. Yeah, but we are using annotations here, right? But then still, we have to do this configuration. It may be annotation-based configuration where you have to create a class, and in that class, you have to write added configuration. So somewhere we have to do the configuration, right? And that's very annoying, actually. And what we are doing in configuration, we are specifying base package. I mean, why you have to mention base package? If you think your Spring is smart enough, why we have to even mention the base package? Don't you think your Spring should be smart enough to scan the package automatically? So this thing, it doesn't make sense to me. Why we have to mention base package? And that's where Spring community, they came up with a new concept, and that is called as Spring Boot. Now, Spring Boot makes your life very, very easy. You can do the same thing which we have done till now, but in a very easy way. And that easy way is a Spring Boot way. Okay, so Chetu, what part you are using in your project now? Are you implementing your project in Spring Boot or normal Spring? Okay, okay. Then you will love you will love Spring Boot. So what we are going to do now is, in fact, in all the new projects, okay, the old projects, of course, they cannot go for Spring Boot now because the project is already started, right? So we don't create new projects every day, right? So there are some projects which are already been made, and we do keep adding modules in that. So if there's a project which is built using normal Spring, of course you have to go with Spring framework itself. But then if you want to build a new project, and if you have a choice of creating a project using Spring or using Boot, of course you will go for Spring Boot now, because all the new projects are getting built in Spring Boot. Okay, when I say all, not exactly all, but then most of them, because there are lots of parameters you have to consider. The number of resources you have, does everyone know Spring Boot, or the server where you're deploying your application, does it support Spring Boot, which version of Spring you're using there. So there are lots of perspective you have to take care of. Now what if I say you can do the same thing which we have done here with the help of Spring Boot? In fact, I was supposed to teach you Spring in Spring Boot itself, but then I wanted to show you the bad part about it. You have to get all this XML file. So all set to know about Spring Boot, everyone? How to get a project? Okay, so what we'll do now is we'll say new. And okay, first of all, when you work with Spring Boot, you have to make sure that you are working in Spring. You are working in Spring perspective, because I guess for one of the session I have changed this perspective to Java EE. Let's get back to Spring perspective here. Okay, so this is my Spring perspective here, and if I create a project, I will say right click, and if I say new. Now, till this point, we were making a Maven project, right? Now this time I will not go for a Maven project. What I will do is I will say Spring Starter project. Now, Spring Starter project is a project which is actually a Spring Boot project, which will give you a project and build. Okay, so when you create a Spring Boot project, you have to mention the project name first. I will say this is demo Hey, hi, can you hear me, everyone? Oh, sorry, the network went, so my Wi-Fi, my home Wi-Fi has stopped working. I don't know what went wrong. Now, actually, I'm using my mobile network. I don't know how stable it is. No, no, not Geo. I'm using Vodafone. I do have a Geo SIM card, but then the phone in which I had a Geo SIM card, that phone is not working. So it's working perfect, right? There's no, I mean, you can hear me, right? There's no lag. Okay, perfect. So let's continue. Okay, I don't know how many MBs are I'm left with today, but then okay, let's see how long we can take this session on my mobile network. Yeah. Okay. So, what was the last thing you have heard here when I was talking about them? When I was talking about Spring Boot? Uh, Anyone? Can you just help me with this? What was the last thing you have heard when I was talking about this? Okay. How to get project in Spring Boot? Okay. So let's create once again. So what I will do is, if you want to create a Spring, okay. So you're there till that point. Okay. So let me create a Spring Boot project once again. So you have to select Spring Startup Project. And here you have to mention the project name. I will go for demo boot as a project name. And you have to mention Maven because you're working with Maven here. Okay. Now, when it comes to packaging, see, when you create a standalone software, what we do is we create a package of jar file. Maybe if you are creating a standalone software or maybe a library itself, of course the packaging would be jar. Otherwise, if you are building a web project, you can go with WAR. But nowadays, you can actually deploy jar as well. So for web application as well, you can deploy a jar file. Okay, so we'll go for jar in this project. Now the version of Java we are going for is 1.8. Again, you can go till 1.6, but then I do have 1.8 here, so we can go with that. The language, of course, we are working with Java. In fact, I'm planning to use Kotlin in Spring as well. I don't know how to do that yet. Let's see. Since I have learned Kotlin also now, I don't know if you okay. You've seen my videos, right, on Kotlin? At least the names, at least the uploads, not the video as that. Okay, so maybe I'll be doing that later. Okay, and then okay, then you have to mention the group ID, and everyone knows, right? Group ID is it's your company domain name basically, where it specifies that all the projects are belongs to this group, and every project will have a different project name, yeah, different artifact ID, and the package would be Telusko demo boot. Now, once you do that, let's say next. Now, this is awesome. Now, what is awesome about this is, let's say if you want to create a project which works with web, okay, maybe you want to create a Spring MVC project. What you can do is you don't have to do anything by yourself. You just have to select web here, and your job is done. The moment you select web, your job is done. Now you are making a Spring Web project. You can say it says full stack web development with Tomcat and Spring MVC, but we are not doing that yet. If you want to create a Spring REST API, you can just do that with Jersey, or you can use web services, right? And your job is done. Let's say if you want to implement a security here, the thing which you're talking about, Chetu, the Spring security, you can directly implement that in here. So you can select core and say security. It will implement those modules as well. So you can say it gives you a secure web application. It gives you a Spring Boot and OAuth as well. And yeah, there are lots of things with Spring Security. In fact, I will be making Spring Security videos in future. So soon, maybe. So Chetu, don't worry. So Spring Security is also coming. Not a part of this course, but then let's see how it goes. Okay. Okay. So we have Spring AOP here. We have all these things. But since we are making this for the first time, again, we'll see how to use AOP in future. We'll see how to use MVC here. So from today, we'll be only working on Spring Boot, okay? So the entire course will be based on Spring Boot. So there's nothing to select here. Everything is by default since we are getting a new project. And Spring Boot is actually very new. Now, if you have seen the earlier project, we were using Spring 4. So when it comes to normal Spring, we were using Spring 4 version. But here, when you talk about Spring Boot, see the version number. It is 1.5.3. The earlier batch I have taken in 1.5.2. Every time they're changing the versions, we are getting new versions. And now they have made 1.5.3 as the version. They are not using 1.5.2 anymore. And 1.5.4 is in a beta version. I would not suggest you to go for beta version now. Let's go for the stable version, which is 1.5.3, and click on next. Nothing to select, and finish. The moment you create a project, you can see it says creating a Maven project and demo project, demo boot here. It will download all the required dependencies for your project, and it is downloading everything from the internet. I just have to keep track on my MBs on my mobile phone now. This is not an unlimited plan on my Vodafone mobile Vodafone network. I don't know how many MBs are remaining for today. Come on, open it. Okay, it's taking lots of time. But let's say this is one way of creating a project, okay? So if you want to create a Spring Boot project, and trust me, once you start working on Spring Boot, you will love Spring. I mean, I don't know if you're loving Spring yet, but then the moment you work on Spring Boot, you will start loving Spring. But then it is taking some time, right? Now this is one way. Now you might be wondering, we are using Spring Boot, we are using Spring STS, and that's why it's easy to make project in this. What if you don't want to use Spring STS? I mean, you don't want to use STS. Maybe you want to work on Eclipse itself. Now question arises, how can you create a Spring Boot project in Eclipse? So what do you think? Chetu, Vivek, Krishna? Do we have a way to create a Spring Boot project without using STS? There should be a way, right? Oh, you there with me, everyone? Am I again offline? Okay, so there should be a way, right? Yes, so there is a way. So what I will do is I will open my browser. Let me open Firefox, and here I will search for a website called as Spring Initializer. Okay, we don't have E there. It is just ZR. Okay. Now, where's that website? Is it this one? Yeah. So you have to search for Spring Initializer. What it does is it will give you a Maven project. I mean, if you don't have STS, that's fine. Create a project here. Okay, let's try. So let's say if I create a project, so it will ask you when you go to this website, which is Spring Initializer. The website name is start.spring.io. And can you imagine how much Spring is promoting Spring Boot now? In fact, if you go to the website, which is Spring Boot or Spring IO, you can see they are focusing on Spring Boot. They are keeping their projects, and they are keeping Spring Boot as the second one. I mean, Spring Boot came very late, but still they are keeping Spring Boot on top because they want to promote Spring. They want to promote Spring Boot. Okay, so what you can do is, if you want to create a project, just go to start.spring.io, mention a group ID here. Artifact ID would be demo boot. Now you have to mention dependencies whatever you want. If you want to implement AOP, just type AOP. It will select AOP, and your job is done. Now you got a project which will have AOP. If you want to go for web, just type web, select this one, and you will get web. If you want maybe JPA or maybe Hibernate, in fact, which is JPA, and if you select JPA, it will give you JPA. So everything will be given by your Spring Boot, whatever you mention here. Anything else? Nothing. Just say generate project, and it will give you a project, and let's save that file. The moment you save that file, and if I open this, can you see that you got demo boot project? If I open this, we got a project. we got a Spring Boot project, and even if you're using Eclipse now, that's fine. Just import this project in your Eclipse environment. Even if you don't have STS, it's fine. So you can use Spring Boot anywhere. Does that make sense, everyone? Yes. So there are two ways of creating a project. The one way is, the first way of creating a project is by using, by using your STS. The another way is by using a website called a Spring Initializer. People who are working on Eclipse, who are working on some other IDEs, they prefer this website, Spring Initializer. And if you have your STS with you, then there's no issue. We can directly create a Spring Boot project there. Okay, let me go back to STS and let me close all these things. I don't need all these things here. Okay, so if I see this project, where is that project now? Yeah, can you see that we got demo boot here, and we get the same files which we get in normal thing. If I open this pom.xml file, and if I click on dependencies, can you see that you got Spring Boot dependencies automatically? We have not mentioned any Spring Boot dependency here. And then if I expand the Maven dependencies here, you can see we got so many jar files. So we are getting Spring Context, Spring AOP. So it gives you support for everything. It also have YML, which is, I don't know what that is, but then it is very famous. Okay, it gives you a JSON conversion as well for Android. It gives you Mockito for creating a mock test cases, right? It gives you lots of things inbuilt. Now, the most important file is if I open this package, which is com.telusko.demoboot, we got a demo boot application.java. And if I open this, we already get a main method here, which is annotated with the help of Spring Boot application, which means if you run this project now, it will give you something in the console. It is running your application. Okay. So this is convention over configuration. You don't have to focus on configuration. You have to focus on what you want to do. If I run this code without any Java, without any dependency, without any configuration, let's run this code. Let's see if it is working or not. Can you see? Okay, first of all, it gives you a good logo for Spring, right? This is how you should know that this is an open source project. Open source project does, they do lots of this thing, animation, creating animation, all those things. Okay, and okay, so you can see it is creating a container also. Okay, so we got this container here. Now, the important thing here is, how can I create a component? Let's say if I want to create a class called as alien, and I want object of that. See, in normal Spring, we have created Spring XML file, and we have to create a bean tag there, or we have to mention component scan. Your Spring says, don't worry. If you want a class, just create a class, and let's name that class as alien, right? And maybe in this class, you have some methods. Let's define those methods here. I will say public void show. And let's print yay. Okay. And now in my main, how do I create object at alien? So what do you think, Ketu? What need to be done here? Any guess? Or Krishna, Vivek, what do you think? What can be done here? Hey, Shobi, I've not seen you. You joined? Great.
Hey Naveen, I missed the half session.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, sorry.
No, that's fine. Okay, so just go back to our Spring, normal Spring. What we do? If you want to create object of alien, the only thing you have to do here is you have to write added component. That we have to write those annotations, right? So we are saying, oh, I've closed that again. So we have to mention added component. But then question arises here, how can I create an object? So I can say alien. If I say alien, let's say, okay, who's the next alien? We got Vivek here. Okay, Vivek equal to. So if I say alien Vivek equal to, I don't want to say new alien because that will be normal Java. So in this case, what we can do is, now if I click on the C, we are already saying Spring application, which is inbuilt class in Spring Boot. In that we have a method which is run. Okay, if I click on this run, okay, it is attaching the source code now. Yeah. So if I open this file, where is that? Where is that? Where is that? Show me. Yeah. Let me just click on run once again, just to get the method. Okay. So can you see that when you say run, it gives you an object of configurable application context. Remember this thing. Run method of Spring application. So run method of Spring application returns an object of configurable application context, which means if I go to this configuration application context, it returns, it extends interface called as application context, which indirectly means that whenever you call a run method, let me repeat, whenever you call a run method, it returns an object of application context, which means what we can do here is we can say application context factory equal to application Spring application.run. So this run method returns an object of application context, and then what we can do here is we can say factory dot get me a bean, and this bean should be of type alien class, and your job is done. You got the alien object, and now you'll say Vivek dot show. Let's run this code. You run this code, and you have to make sure that you're running this code with the help of Spring Boot application. And can you see that we got the output? It says, yay. So now tell me, which is better, using a normal Spring or using a Spring Boot? Of course, right? What about you, Krishna, Chetu, Shobi? I don't know, Shobi, how much you have seen, but then what do you think? Which is better, Spring Boot or Spring, a normal Spring? Okay, that's fine. What about you, Chetu? What do you think? Okay, still not a stated to decide. Okay, not an issue. Okay, but till this point, Spring Boot looks easy, right? Because you don't have to do any configuration. Everything will be done by your Spring Boot. Okay, and everyone is going for Spring Boot nowadays. In fact, you could have learned the entire courses in Spring Boot. Okay. Now what else? Can we use other annotations here? Yes, we can. In fact, if I go to my old project, which is I guess demo Spring, and if I copy those classes here, let me just do that. I want this alien class, I want this human class, I don't want human class anymore. I want this alien class, I want my laptop class, I want a thinkable class, a thinkable interface. Let's copy that, and let's paste it here. Yes, I want to replace the alien as well. Now, when I replace alien, I have to make sure that I don't call show now because I don't have a show method in the old alien. And oh, we are using electronic here. Let's use that class as well. Okay, done. Now, if you can see, we got alien, which is thinkable, and this alien has a method which is called as think. Let's see if it is working. So we'll say Vivek dot think, and it should work, right? Let's run this code. Can you see that it works? It says virtual thinking. So we are not doing any configuration. Everything will be done by Spring Boot. Now, why I'm focusing that topic more, the configuration part, because configuration is one of the biggest headache in the development environment. Most of the time we spend our precious time on configuration. And if something goes wrong, trust me, even if your project is completely fine, due to one configuration, it will give you lots of errors. And if it is a good error, you are happy. But the moment you do, if you get an error with due to configuration, and if that error is difficult to track, and trust me, you will lose your 1 week finding the bug. Okay, maybe I'm exaggerating it, but then you do waste lots of your time in configuration. I do remember when I was learning Sturge for the first time 4 or 5 years back. It was a horrible experience for me, because Sturge has so many dependencies to work with, so many configuration to work with. I used to hate Sturge, but I was not having any choice at that time. I was supposed to work on Sturge project. I used to hate it, and now when I work on Spring project, I love it because there's no much of configuration. As a programmer, we should focus on the actual logic, not on the configuration. So Spring Boot focuses more on the business logic instead of focusing on configuration. Maybe in future you will be having something better than Spring Boot, and at that point you will say, hey, I used to hate Spring Boot before. That's how technology works, right? But then again, to be honest, I love Spring Boot because everything is done with the help of Spring Boot. The only problem which I face is, okay, so everything is given by Spring Boot, right? All the configuration. What if you want to customize it? That's the issue, right? Because now if you want to customize it, how can you do that? Because everything is done by Spring Boot. So if you want to customize it, there is a special file in your resources called as application.properties. And if you click that, this is an empty file. Whatever special configuration you want to mention, maybe you want to work with database, so you can mention your database properties here. If you want to work with security, what is your admin username and password, you can mention here. There are lots of properties available. If you say control space, can you see that there are so many properties available? Example, if I want to use one of them, which one I should use? Okay. How is the Spring DDBC? Okay, I will say data source. Okay, so I will say Spring data source URL. I will say JDBC :MySQL Naveen. So if you want to set the database name, you just have to use this URL. You just have to use this property. Your job is done. You have mentioned your URL. It is that easy to configure. And trust me, property files are much easier to work with compared to XML files. It looks so good, clean. But again, most of them uses XML for properties because XML have this hierarchy of parent and child, which is difficult to create in property files. But then Spring Boot promotes property files. It doesn't promote XML. So everyone got the point, right? What is Spring Boot? So all the further topics, all the further annotations will be looking in Spring Boot project. So we'll be doing the same thing. Whatever we have to continue now, we'll be doing in Spring Boot. So anyone, any question? Okay, everything seems good. Okay, and now there's a twist. The twist is, if you look at this code, okay, the twist is, okay, where was I? I forgot about that or what? Okay, I forgot what I was supposed to say. Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot this. I forgot what I was supposed to say. Well, okay, that's fine. So if I open this XML file, if you want some extra features, example, if you want some extra services, what you can do is you can add those services in POM file, and you'll be getting those services. It's not that if you're using Spring Boot, you cannot add extra thing. You can add whatever you want. You can add the dependencies. You can work with. You can configure dependency. You can do whatever you want. So yeah, that's how you create a Spring Boot project. So let me just go for a quick recap. Why we have Spring Boot? Because Spring Boot focuses on convention over configuration. What it simply means is, instead of focusing on configuration, you should focus on so instead of focusing on configuration, you should focus on convention, where you have to focus more on business logic, not on what you want to, what other things you have to configure. There are two ways of creating Spring Boot project. The first way is by creating a Spring Boot project inside STS, which is very simple. You can right-click and create a Spring Startup project the way we have done here. Right-click, Spring Startup project. The another way is you can go to the website, which is Spring Initializer, and you can mention whatever you want and click on Generate. It will download whatever you want. Okay. Yeah, that's how your Spring Boot works. So yeah, that's it from this, where we have talked about Spring Boot. What is Spring Boot? So in the next session, which is on Monday, we'll talk about more topics on Spring Code. So we'll try to complete whatever annotations we have in Spring Boot, and from Wednesday we'll be looking at Spring MVC. So on Monday we'll be talking about remaining Spring Code annotations. How to close, how to work with bean processors, how to achieve init method and destroy method, all those things. Okay, yes, Vivek, initializer is for Eclipse. If you don't have STS, and if you still want a project, then you can go for the initializer. But in STS also you can do that. You can create an initializer project and you can import the project in STS as well. But then if you have Spring Boot in STS, then why to do that? Okay, then that's it. See you on Monday, everyone. Have a great weekend. Weekends are meant to be enjoying, but then do practice as well. Since you are doing this course, let's do it properly. So let's practice this. Yeah.